This is lesson 5, adding video transitions. In this lesson, I'm working with the PR0501 Premiere Pro project. You can find this file in the PR lessons folder that you can copy from the DVD included with this book. In this project, I already have one sequence called Working with Transitions. There are also two video clips, Bunker Hill Memorial Bridge and Cars on Bridge. If I double-click on Bunker Hill Memorial Bridge, it'll load up into the source monitor. And this clip has been pre-prepared. It has in and out points already on the clip. The default behavior of a clip that you add into Premiere Pro assigns an in point at the beginning of the physical clip and an out point at the end of the physical clip. You can change this and give the clip new in and out points if you only want to use a small section of it. In this case, that's what's been done here. But the reason for trimming a clip in the source monitor can be because maybe there's extra area that you don't need. Maybe you recorded extra space just to give yourself handles, to give yourself some choice in editing, but you don't really need those extra handles, that extra space when you're working in your project. So you trim the clip, reducing its size, reducing it only to what you need. When working with video transitions, having these extra handles is really helpful and really important because most transitions actually work by transitioning from the hidden or trimmed areas of a clip to the hidden or trimmed areas of the next clip. So when you're shooting, there's a technique called shooting through. You normally start recording before the action you want to capture begins, and you stop recording after it's finished, giving yourself that extra space, that extra padding. One, it's a safety measure, and two, again, it's helpful when adding transitions. Transitions are added between clips, and they're used to transition from one clip, the left side of the edit line, to the next clip, the right side of the edit line. Very rarely will you see that many different transitions used in film or television. Mostly what you'll see in film and television are the straight cut, which you learned to make in the previous lesson, and sometimes see a dissolve, which is often used to convey the passage of time or movement distance. If you're George Lucas, you'll see a push wipe, which basically pushes one clip to the side and slides in another. But while the program has many different transitions you can use, they really aren't commonly used in most situations. Many of them are very, very distracting, and many editors feel that they bring attention to themselves rather than focus on the work, rather than focus on the content itself. I'd like to shift into the workspace for working with effects. Window, Workspace, Effects. And this makes the panels that work with effects, the Effects panel where the effects are stored, and the Effect Controls panel, the primary panels. I'm going to click on my Project panel, and I'd like to double-click on Cars on Bridge, and you'll notice this one has also been prepared for us. And what I'd like to do is add the Bunker Hill Memorial Bridge clip to the timeline. I'm just going to drag it onto video 1, make sure it snaps to the beginning, and then I'm going to add the Cars on Bridge. Both of these have been trimmed. After that, again, I'm going to make sure they snap together. In order for most transitions to work, your clips have to be on the same video track. I'd like to click on my Effects panel, and this is where you can find your effects and presets. Presets are preset effects. They're included with the program, and they have some really simple effects that you can add, like if you want to do a picture-in-picture effect, for example. But I just want to add a video transition, and I can find those in the video transition section. And the one I want to add is a cross dissolve, which would be under the dissolves panel. Now, let's say that you don't know which folder your desired effect or transition is in, but you do know what it's called. In that case, you can use the search field here to type in the name or part of the name, and the program will make it visible. So if you don't know what the grouping of transitions and effects are, you can still find them if you know the name or even part of the name. A transition, which is denoted by the split half square, is added between clips. So all I do is click on the transition I want to add. I drag it into my timeline, and I can have a choice. I can place it at the end of the first clip, the beginning of the second clip, or right in the middle. When I place it at the edit point, the middle of the clips, this usually gives you the best effect because it actually cross dissolves. It combines the end of the first clip, the trimmed area of the first clip, with the trimmed area of the second clip. And it gives you the most appealing results in general. I just placed my playhead at the beginning of the transition, and I played through it. If you want to jump from edit line to edit line, you can use the up and down arrows on the keyboard. Up and down arrows jump from edit line to edit line. The up arrow jumps back to the previous edit line, and the down arrow jumps forward to the next edit line. If you want to preview just the area of a cut, just where two clips meet, Shift-K is the keyboard command for that. It's called play around. It plays around the current position of the playhead. And it gives you a really quick idea of what you're working with, what that specific edit you just made looks like. And this is a cross dissolve. The first clip fades out as the second clip fades in. They're fading into each other. Now, if I double click on the cross dissolve icon on top of the clips, Set Transition Duration pops up. Set Transition Duration allows me to control how long the cross dissolve is. So right now this one is 1 second, 6 frames. But what if I want a slower cross dissolve? Maybe I want a 2-second cross dissolve. So I'll type in 200 and click OK. And now the cross dissolve is 2 seconds long. Again, I'm going to press Shift-K to preview around that edit line where the playhead currently is. And now the effect is slower. So it's a slower dissolve. If you click on an effect to highlight it, and then look in the Effect Controls panel by clicking on the Effect Controls panel, you'll see the properties of that effect. Here you could also set duration. You can also set alignment, whether the transition is at the beginning of the first clip, the end of the second clip, or right in the middle between them, centered on cut, which is where I dragged it. You can also choose for this particular dissolve to combine the clips at the beginning or end. Normally a cross dissolve goes from fully the first clip visible to fully the second clip visible. But technically you could change it so that the clips start off mixed or end mixed. The properties you have to control are based on which effect you used. The cross dissolve, for example, has very few options. But if I were to change the cross dissolve, I'll just clear the search field in effects. I'll use push. If I were to change it to a push, I'm just going to drag it and drop it right on cross dissolve to replace it. Again, Shift-K, because my playhead is still right at that. I'm going to click on the timeline. I'm going to move my playhead back to the edit line because I accidentally moved it. Shift-K will preview this. A push pushes the first clip out of the way and replaces it with the second. If I click on the push transition, I can see that this transition has a lot more options. For example, I can reverse it and change the direction of the transition. Again, I'll click on the timeline, Shift-K, and now it pushes from the other direction. So depending on which transition you add, you will have different options to edit it in the Effect Controls panel. I'm going to undo that, Command Z, so I'm going to go back to my dissolve. So usually the dissolve is the most common transition you'll see in film and television. It's considered a good way to transition between time and space, to show the passage of time or the movement through time or space. In this video, you've learned how to apply video transitions to clips. You've learned that the clips in general need to be trimmed before you apply your transitions. You've learned how to add clips to the timeline, search for transitions in the effects panel, and then add them to the clips on your timeline.